have the pleasure of introducing our next set of speakers. I want to share a little bit about me. As I enter my 17th year at the foundation, I regret that I never had the opportunity to meet Dr. Borlaug. He passed away just months after I joined the foundation. However, I'm honored to be a part of elevating his legacy for the past decade and a half. And I have been inspired by so many others who have kept Dr. Borlaug's vision alive. Legacy keepers. Legacy keepers like Aditi Mukherjee, Swati Nayak, Carrie Fowler, John Ruan Sr. and the entire Ruan family, his daughter, Jeannie Borlaug Lauby, and his granddaughter, Julie Borlaug, who both worked tirelessly to carry his mission forward. All these individuals taught me the pageant of Dr. Borlaug's incredible journey that took him from his family farm in Iowa to the University of Minnesota, then here to Mexico, and eventually to South Asia and Africa. I want to begin our afternoon segment with two other legacy keepers who meant a lot to Dr. Borlaug and whose lives are truly impacted and intertwined with his. Dr. Ronnie Coffman was Dr. Borlaug's only PhD student and collaborated closely with him on projects aimed at improving crop yields and battling hunger around the globe. Their interactions significantly influenced Dr. Coffman's career and his commitment to food security. Today, he serves as Vice Chair of the Borlaug Global Rust Initiative and International Professor Emeritus of Plant Breeding and Genetics at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, my alma mater. For over 40 years, Dr. Coffman has empowered young minds in the pursuit of solutions to food security, just like Dr. Borlaug did. Dr. Coffman is joined by Dr. Elsa Murano, who also continues to elevate Dr. Borlaug's legacy through her focus on advancing agricultural research and promoting food security. She first met Dr. Borlaug 30 years ago when she arrived at Texas A&M University as a faculty member. She fondly recalls being blown away by his determination the first time she heard him give a lecture. To this day, their first conversation resonates deeply with her, and she remembers his probing question: "What do you do that helps people directly? It is up to you, it is up to me, it is up to all of us to help people directly." As she continues to embrace Dr. Borlaug's words, Dr. Murano leads the Norman Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture and Development at Texas A&M University. Both Dr. Coffman and Dr. Murano have played an instrumental role as members of the World Food Prize Foundation Council of Advisors. Please welcome Dr. Ronnie Coffman and Dr. Elsa Murano.
I had to have a drink to start there, and I want to thank Michelle for the new title of Legacy Keeper. I might put that on my next business card. So, I first came to Mexico, to CIMMYT, 54 years ago. I was Borlaug's graduate student, as Michelle mentioned, and I was doing part of my thesis research here at El Baton. At that time, it was just a big field with an old hacienda over there in the corner, which is now It had no roof, just a few walls. That's now the guest house. So to just look around you now and see what's happened in the last 54 years. By the way, I was 26 years old then, so you can do the math of where I am now. I guess I could be a presidential candidate.
Why not?
Don't get excited about that. So I was here. I mean, many of you, some of you, a few of you, you get as old as I am. Most of the people in the audience haven't heard your stories because none of them are left. So I'll tell you a couple of stories that a few of you have heard, but I think you should all hear. One is what it's like to receive a Nobel Prize. So I and several other colleagues, including Dr. Rajaram, who was just honored, were in the field in Toluca with Dr. Borlaug when we see this car, coming down through the experiment station on the other side of a big irrigation ditch that splits the farm. So, Dr. Borlaug sees the car and he realizes it's Margaret, his wife. And he has this sort of what the hell look on his face, what is she doing out here? So she gets out over there 100 meters away, a football field away. And as Jenny will tell you, her mother had a very strong voice. So she gets out of the car. She says, "Norman, you won the Nobel Prize." And that's how we all learned about it. He went over and spoke to her for maybe 5 minutes. And then, of course, we were loafing, the rest of us not working. He came back. He said, "We got to go back to work," which we did. We were working F2s. And about, 30 minutes, and he didn't quite believe it, and we didn't either, really. I mean, it just seemed a little too much to be true. And in about 30 minutes, a reporter arrived from the Associated Press. He was by himself. Turned out he had asked a farmer up the road where Dr. Borlaug was working, and the farmer told him, and he gave the farmer 50 pesos and said, "If anybody else asks you, send them down that road over there." So he had 30 minutes with Dr. Borlaug alone, and then, all the press corps in Mexico City arrived, including a crew from NBC News. So you can watch a video of Borlaug there, and me when I still had some hair, and Dr. Rajaram, and a few others. So just one more point before I turn it over to Elsa in Texas is that, Dr. Borlaug was so honored by the prize, and he realized he had so many colleagues and partners who had done so much. And he really wanted to do something to honor those people, and that's the origin of the World Food Prize. He was really dedicated to that, and I think truly, Mashal, it's one of his greatest legacies, and is perpetuating his impact in really remarkable ways that you and your colleagues are a great part of. So I might make it a few more comments. We're supposed to have a conversation, Elsa, so
All right.
It's all yours for
Okay.
Texas.
All right. Well, first, the story that... Oops.
Uh-oh.
Hear me? I think. Hello? Oh, you can. Okay. I'll just keep talking. The story that Michelle told is very important and certainly speaks to the fact that Dr. Borlaug was very inspirational, okay? So as a professor at a university, I'm going to ask all of you, there's going to be 5 qualities of Dr. Borlaug that you're going to be listening to, okay? So write them down. First one is inspirational, all right? So get ready, okay? There'll be a quiz later, okay? So very much inspirational. And I would have to tell you that when we had that conversation, Texas A&M University. No? Okay. Something's going on.
Go with
There you go. That'll work. Okay. When we were having that conversation, this was at Texas A&M University when I first met him in 1995. Okay. And so he said to me that he had worked in Mexico, of course. I knew all about it because I had been at Iowa State University as a faculty member before getting to Texas A&M. So I had heard all about Dr. Borlaug. I couldn't believe that I was meeting him at Texas A&M University. So he said to me, hablo español. Yo le dije, okay, vamos a hablar entonces. Óyeme, chico, vamos a decirte. And he goes, okay, wait a minute. I don't understand Cuban Spanish. So let's speak English. And I said, okay, fair enough. So anyway, inspirational for sure. I will say to you then, the second thing is and it's been mentioned earlier today, the commitment to science. I had the great privilege of being appointed Undersecretary for Food Safety at the U.S. Department of Agriculture a few years later. And I talked to Dr. Borlaug about it, and getting maybe his advice before I went off to Washington, D.C. Because you know what they say about Washington, D.C., if you want a friend, get a dog. That's what they say. But anyway, so Dr. Borlaug said to me, okay, whatever decisions you make, base them on science. That has to be your anchor. Science, facts. That way, reasonable people can be reasoned with. They may not agree with you, but they'll see why you're making decisions because you're showing them the data. Okay, so extremely good. So very much committed to science is your second quality there. Then when he turned 90, this was in 2004, I believe. I was still in Washington, D.C., so they did a big celebration for his birthday. They had at U.S. Department of Agriculture, they had a cake, and the Congress passed an appropriations for a new program, the Borlaug Fellowship Program. And so he was very, very happy there, of course, cut the cake, and we went around and visited members of Congress because he wanted to thank them all for what they had done. And it was a long, long day. And so by the end of that day, it was after dinner, I was pooped. I was ready to go to the hotel. And I said, okay, Dr. Borlaug, let's grab a cab and go back to the hotel. He says, I'm heading to the airport. I got a flight to Africa. And I thought, what? Aren't you tired? He says, you can't be tired. You have to do what needs to be done. So never stop is the third quality. Never stopped. I mean, he was committed to doing whatever it took, staying up all night, whatever he needed to do the work that needed to be done. Okay, and it was at that moment he wanted to go to Africa and continue his conversations with heads of state about policies that needed to be adopted and changed and so forth in order to facilitate agricultural production in those countries. And then one story that I love telling is that several years later, I was the dean of the College of Agriculture at Texas A&M when I came back from Washington, D.C. And I thought, we need to give Dr. Borlaug an honorary PhD, because he had honorary PhDs from many universities all over the world. And so it wasn't easy because, we had to get special permission from the regents of the university because Dr. Borlaug was teaching at that time. So he was technically an employee, and you can't give an honorary PhD. But we got permission. Basically I asked the regents, can you make an exception for anybody who's won the Nobel Peace Prize, the Congressional Medal, the Presidential Medal? And they laughed, just like you guys, and they said, yeah, sure. So anyway, on the day that we were kind of going through the ceremony, imagine a stadium full of people, thousands and thousands, because students were graduating and their parents were there and all of that. And as I'm getting close to the steps to the podium with Dr. Borlaug, I thought to myself, boy, what if he trips? He was 90, okay? In fact, 90, in his 90s. And so I figured, well, what can I do? And as I'm thinking this, he says to me, Dr. Murano, may I help you up the stairs? Thank you, Dr. Borlaug. So up we went. So very much caring for others would be the fourth thing. That's who he was. He was about caring for other people, not about himself by any means. And I would tell you the last one is certainly something that I experienced when I went to Washington, D.C. with him when he got the Presidential Medal from President George W. Bush. And the reporters were asking him all kinds of questions after the event and so forth. And so at one point he turns and he says, ask her some questions. She used to be the Undersecretary for Food Safety. He did not like the attention. He was all about not really looking for credit or look what I've done, look who I am. So he was uncomfortable getting asked all these questions about his accomplishments. So not accepting credit, not doing things for the credit. He was doing it for the purpose of the work. Of course, at that point I told him, this is about you, buddy. Okay, this is not about me. You have to keep answering questions from these reporters. So I'm gonna stop there. So basically you have your 5 characteristics there, certainly very inspirational, never stop, never looking for credit, certainly caring for other people, and the commitment to science are truisms about Dr. Norman Borlaug. So let me turn it over to you, if you will.
Yeah, so maybe just a couple of things that I think we could learn from Dr. Borlaug. One was his emphasis on youth, and the youth programs at the World Food Prize are a great example. The Borlaug Field Prize, Field Award is another one. We got 3, Swati and Aditi and Brahm, of course, are here with us. So I think focusing on capacity development and the next generation, I think, I know a lot of you here are donors, so my plea would be focus more on capacity development. Think about, I don't know, I've never been in a donor organization, but I feel like you have a lot of young program officers who want to do things in 3 years, but it takes a long time. It takes a long view. So think about your business model if you really want to enhance sustainable development. I think the other thing we can learn from Borlaug is the importance of communication. During his day, it wasn't that different from these days. People were very suspicious of the short-statured varieties. They thought, all kinds of rumors. We didn't have social media in those days, but we had other means, and there were all kinds of rumors. Borlaug was asked once at a press conference, is it true, Dr. Borlaug, that these varieties will make you sterile? And he said, I wish to hell it was. We'd do something about the population problem. So he was really a very effective communicator. One more thing I'll say about how, I wish you had all you can watch video. There's a video that was made in Toluca by the NBC News crew. Watch that. Just Google it or look on YouTube. You'll find it. It's good to experience him talking. He's an amazing guy once he gets, or was an amazing guy once he gets started. And the way he got started, he used to make a note, just like I have here on a little piece of paper, stuff it in his coat pocket. I don't know how many coats he had, Jenny, but it seemed like all the pockets were always full. And when somebody would ask him to speak, he would just, and he couldn't think about what he was going to say, he would just reach in and pull out that wad of papers. And something would come to him and he would launch out and he'd be gone. That's the way he taught at class. So that's it for me, Elsa. Why don't you wrap us up?
I'd be happy to do that, and I'll do it by just telling very briefly. We knew he was not well health-wise. The week when he passed away, he was already in hospice. at home in Dallas, Texas. So I went up to see him, knowing that this would be the last time I would, and certainly it was. And so Jeannie will remember, certainly, I walked in, and he's sitting in his recliner with a blanket. And so I start talking to him and saying, you know, you've meant so much to me, Dr. Borlaug, and, you know, it's just amazing, but you hang in there, we love you, you know, all of the things that I could possibly think of. And so he turned to me and he said, Elsa, and he was as bright as can be. He had all his marbles. He said to me, don't let the dream die. And of course, at that point, I was just taken aback, and I don't know how I didn't just start crying right then and there. He said, don't let the dream die. Of course, later I started to think, thanks, Norm, okay? No pressure, right? So I'm gonna say that to all of you, everybody here works in some aspect of helping to feed the world, whether it's your scientists or your policymakers or students or legal experts, whatever it is that you do. But here we are at this meeting, your communicator. Don't let the dream die. We have to continue the message. We have to, as Dr. Borlaug said very well, peace cannot be built on empty stomachs or in human misery. And so we have to continue that legacy no matter what. And as he did, rely on science and don't stop, and not do it for our own benefit or our own, you know, glory, but to get the work done and to help people. And as he said to me, our job is to help people. That's our job on this planet. So thank you all very much.